So for those who may have saw my political video last week, it was very unstructured. So I want to take a particular section out of that video and explain in more detail, and particularly my policy ideas on how we can change Florida's state constitution. So let's jump right into it. First is change amendment threshold to 55%. Now, from my understanding, the threshold to make a change to the state constitution was 50%, but it's now 60%. There were two highly contested amendment ideas in 2024 that were voted on. Not ideas, but they were actual amendments on the ballot. But it was the right to abortion, and it was the marijuana legalization initiative. They got 55 and 57% approval in terms of the actual vote. So a majority of Floridians, despite voting for Trump, actually wanted to approve abortion rights and recreational marijuana. So the second change to the Constitution that I want to see is a change to the ranked choice voting style system. The current problem is that the way we have things set up in our state, and really most of the states, is that third-party voting is basically spoiler voting. What this will allow people to do is still do their protest vote without throwing the election. So say a Republican or Democrat party can say, oh, look, this third-party person is getting an increasing share of the votes, and so they can then respond to that and change tact, hopefully. The third change I would like to see happen is a change the electoral vote distribution to proportional, similar to Nebraska. I think that because with the winner-take-all system, I do think that suppresses the vote for, say, minority parties. For Florida, that's the Democrat Party. In terms of raw numbers, we're outnumbered by the Republicans, and so I think that just for red states in general, and perhaps with blue states as well, like in California, people don't show up to vote because it's like, well, I want to get outvoted, my vote's not going to count. If we were to do change number 2, and I think change number 3, there's really no excuse to not vote at this point. You can do your protest vote, put your Democrat at number 2 or number 3, or your Republican at number 2 or number 3, and then go from there. Say, hey, you need to change up your policies or whatever reason you decided to do your protest vote, and then you'll still get the best candidate for your policies with the best chance of winning, and hopefully elected. So another thing I would like to point out is that with the change to number 3, it also means that candidates have more of an incentive to campaign in states that were marked as blue, solidly blue, or solidly red. It's like, look, under this system, the more of your people vote for you, the more electoral votes you can get. It's not going to be 51%, so they just get it all. It's like, oh, they get 51%, they get 60, 70, 80%, they're going to get 80% of the electoral votes as opposed to 100% of those votes. The fourth change I would like to see to the Florida State Constitution is to change the amendment approval threshold must also meet the proposed changes as well as the current. So what that would mean is not only would it have to say, let's just say we get it down to 55%, right? What that would mean is if, say, someone says, hey, I want to change the threshold to 60, 70, 80. What that would mean is they'll have to meet the 55% plus whatever change that they are proposing. So if they say, hey, I want to change the threshold to 70%, you basically a two-step process. You got to meet the 55, or in the current case, the 60%, and then you have to meet, say, that proposed 70 and 80. You basically got to be able to meet your own standard. The fifth change to the Constitution that I would like to see is a state holiday for the Monday before and on the election day of the presidential general election. Now, in my city in particular, it basically was, elderly people coming in and voting conservative that caused my city to move to vote, basically to switch to Trump. I think part of the problems with our election process is that it's just not that convenient to vote. People still have to go to work. People got to earn their money and whatnot. So I think that if we have an extended, not only make election day a holiday, but also the day before, so that way people have that weekend before all the way up until polls close on that election day, or if you stay in the line, before, you get in the line and then stay regardless of the closing. Because I think it's like once the line filters out, then they'll stop letting people in. So, but anyway, the idea is make it convenient for everybody to vote. So it won't just be necessarily that retired, that elderly, or in cases that rich, right? Because they can, a rich person can afford to not go to work today. It's like, oh, you're fired. It's like, okay, I just go apply here, or I just go, or in some cases they own the company, so it doesn't really matter. They're not going to get fired. They're not they're answerable to, investors in that aspect. I just didn't come in that day, but make it convenient for everybody to have an opportunity to come in. And I know, the push right now is the mail-in voting system, but I think making it convenient for people to come into the polling station and vote as well, physically, will help us with turnout overall in general as well. So the sixth change to the state constitution that I would like to see is automatic voter registration at the age of 18. So one of the bigger issues that comes up every election is just getting people registered to vote. Again, this is part of the fact that we've made voting, or voting as it currently stands on our current societal standards and needs, is just very inconvenient. You have to be sort of motivated for that type of stuff. And, someone just getting that card and seeing it, for the first time may motivate them to be more politically active. But one way they can do it is they can send that registration card, voter's registration card, to the high school. You check where they're registered at, school-wise, send it to them and let them handle it. Or, depending on privacy laws or whatnot, if the state is allowed to look into where a student physically resides, coordinate with the school, send the card to the address they have on file. Again, make it easier for people to officially participate in our election process. So the last but certainly not final change I like to see in Florida state constitutions, that people may vote in precincts not their own, but essentially the appropriate precinct or main voting office for counting and tabulation. I believe the technical term is the supervisor of elections. Yeah, supervisor of elections. So let's just say you getting off from work, it's election day. We don't get the holiday, it's election day, and you're coming out from work, and you got a polling place that's along the way, but you're not registered to. It's not your technically your appropriate polling place, but you want to vote anyway. So you go in there, you vote, and what happens is it gets mailed, or it gets physically driven to the supervisor of elections office, and then they tabulate it, right? After they, collect the ones that are not for that particular precinct, so tabulate it and whatnot. One of the bigger issues that face our nations in general is the fact that they like to be strategic. Sorry, I can't speak. They basically like to target areas of their political opponents when they're in power and close their polling stations, so it becomes less convenient for their voters to be able to vote, because less polling stations means longer lines, and then people are more likely to just go home after having waiting hours and whatnot. And around that time of year, it could be wet and hot. I mean, it's Florida, people. It can be wet and hot around that time. I have to check. Well, I don't think it's during hurricane season, but regardless, it's wet and hot, or just wet in general. But anyway, those are my proposed changes to the state constitution that I would like to see happen this cycle or over several cycles. There are other ideas that I would like to push, but I think that if we get some of these pushed through, it will make those future ideas easier to pass in the future. So, what ideas do you think should happen, in terms of changing, not just necessarily Florida's state constitution, but maybe in your particular state if you do not reside in Florida? Have a good one.